By the time the founders hammered out the Bill of Rights, they ran into a problem. If you make a list of rights, some slack-jawed lawyer down the road is going to say, well, if it's not on the list, then I guess you don't have it. Framers weren't going to let that fly. So they dropped the Ninth Amendment, the Constitution equivalent of writing in a permanent marker. Just because it's not written down doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This wasn't about giving government wiggle room. It was about slamming the door in its face. The Ninth Amendment makes it crystal clear. The government's powers are limited, but the people's powers and the people's rights are limitless. Welcome to our republic.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands that kept
sailors and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not one small step for man.
Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be.
We pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Okay? Translation: the Bill of Rights is not a shopping list. It's a warning label. And why it was needed. Back in 1787 through 1789, there was a split on whether we should even write down a Bill of Rights. Hamilton's camp said it was dangerous. If you listed the rights, you implied that anything left off the list wasn't protected. Hamilton argued, why declare that things shall not be done when there's no power to do them? Madison's camp said the people demanded it. After all, state constitutions had Bill of Rights. Without one, anti-federalists feared that the new federal government would trample liberty. The Ninth Amendment was the compromise. It was like Madison was saying, fine, we'll write down some, but we'll also indicate a giant disclaimer at the end so nobody ever says, that's all you get? So what are these unlisted rights, right? The Ninth doesn't spell them out, but history and practice have shown examples, right? Freedom of movement is one of them. The right to travel between states freely. Parental authority. Raising your kids without the state dictating every detail. California might need to remember to look at the Ninth Amendment because they are slowly stripping away Ninth Amendment rights for parents. Family and marriage. Choosing relationships and family structure. This is the one that I actually have a problem with, right? I'll just leave it there. Privacy. Not explicitly written, but often tied to the Ninth Amendment in court arguments. Property use. Deciding how you use your land and belongings without government interference. And this is why I hate HOAs, even though HOAs kind of existed before the Declaration of Independence when the Pilgrims were doing some of their things. You had to agree to all their things. It's kind of like a little mini HOA. I still think they're communist communities. And unfortunately, I live in one. Whatever. The Ninth doesn't create these rights. It acknowledges they already belong to you by nature, by common law, or by tradition. The Constitution just says government can't trample them. So let's talk about a little bit of the historical drama in the courts. The Ninth Amendment is one of the least cited parts of the Constitution in Supreme Court decisions. Some judges have treated it like a throwaway clause. Others, like Justice Arthur Goldberg in the 1960s, called it proof that liberty is bigger than what is written on parchment. That tension between treating the Ninth as a sleeping giant or a dusty footnote has made one of the most mysterious amendments. But its meaning is very clear. It's a warning shot to the government. Don't assume silence means permission. Don't assume that because we're not talking about these other rights, that gives you permission to come and do stuff. The government has no place in my family. It has no place in telling me how I should be raising my kids. I'm sorry. So let's talk about the Ninth Amendment in action. Here's where things get a little bit spicy. The Ninth hasn't been cited much, but when it has, the debates have been huge. Griswold versus Connecticut, 1965. Connecticut had a law banning married couples from using contraception. The Supreme Court struck it down, saying the Constitution protects zones of privacy. Justice Arthur Goldberg pointed out that the Ninth Amendment, it was as proof that the Bill of Rights doesn't cover everything. Right? Roe v. Wade, right? 1973. The Ninth was referenced again and again in arguments about privacy and abortion. The court didn't base its ruling solely on it, but the Ninth became part of the debate. Now, personally, I'm glad Roe v. Wade got overturned because abortion is murder. Sorry, I don't care if you agree with me or not. If you don't like that, go watch some other show. Recent debates. Some scholars argue that rights like homeschooling, medical decisions, or digital privacy could fit under the Ninth. Others dismiss it as too vague. I'm so sorry. Again, the government has no right to tell me how I should school my kids. I actually prefer homeschooling my kids. When I wake them up in the morning, I tell them, get ready for your daily indoctrination. You have to go off to school. Medical decisions. The only medical decision the government should be making is not allowing people to kill their babies. Sorry. Other than that, you shouldn't be telling me what vaccines or any crap I should get. Sorry. Piss off. And digital privacy, that is legitimately privacy. You ain't got no business looking at anything that I've got online. Sorry. Unless it violates actual law, jog on. Why it still matters. The Ninth Amendment shows us that there are two critical truths about America. Liberty comes first. Your rights don't exist because government wrote them down. Government wrote them down because you had already had them. And the Constitution limits government, not people. Every time someone says it's not in the Constitution, so you don't have that right, the Ninth Amendment stands up like a neon sign saying, wrong again. The Ninth Amendment is the founders' way of saying freedom can't be boxed in. It lists some rights: speech, religion, guns, trials. Speech and guns are our favorite. But they knew liberty was bigger than any list. By writing the Ninth, they locked in the principle that your rights don't come from government. They don't end with the ink on the parchment. They belong to you, and they're endless. And these rights are given to you by God, which is why I say you cannot kill babies. That baby has a right to live, idiots. Thank you for listening today. Again, another rant. Remember, history is not boring, especially when the founders were sharp enough to predict that future governments would try to weasel out of liberty. So they wrote the Ninth Amendment as a permanent reminder that the rights of the people don't end where the parchment runs out. Thanks for listening.